I have tried hundreds of makeup brushes throughout all of my years here of doing beauty content on YouTube. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. So I have tried many brushes from different brands and different price points. There are so many different shapes and sizes out there, and I know it can be so overwhelming for you guys. So today I wanted to break it down to show you the brushes that I actually use every single time I do my makeup. These are brushes that I swear by. I've been using a lot of these for a very long time now. I want to make this super easy for you guys, so I'm going to break this down by category and kind of follow the order that I typically do my makeup in. So my top two brush brands, hands down, are Sigma Beauty and BK Beauty. I've been using Sigma Beauty brushes for well over 10 years now, and then BK Beauty is a little bit newer to me. I started using their brushes about 2 to 3 years ago. And then just a heads up, I do have an affiliate code that works with both brands. The code is just Angela Bright, and that'll save you some money on their websites. But I did want to mention that BK Beauty has their anniversary sale going on right now. The sale goes through August 10th, and their entire website is between 20 and 35% off, and there is no code needed to shop on their site. Of course, I'm going to be linking every single brush I'm talking about today down below, so let's get started. So we're starting with foundation, and my favorite brush for that is the BK Beauty 115. For me, this is the perfect size and shape for a foundation brush. I love when my foundation brushes have a soft angle to them like this. It lets me apply the foundation in different ways where I can do more like streaks if I want to, but I do end up doing just a lot of patting motions to really pat my foundation into my skin and get that coverage. But we gotta talk about the shape of this brush really quick because this isn't the only BK Beauty brush that has this shape. You might have heard someone talking about the BK Beauty 101 brush, which is the larger size of the 115 that I just mentioned. But it doesn't stop there. They also have the 109 brush, which is a smaller version of my 115 foundation brush. So these three brushes are the same shape, just different sizes. So kind of depending on your face shape and just how small or large your face is in general can kind of help you pick which one of these will work best for you, because you definitely don't need all three. So for me, my favorite out of the three is the 115, the more medium size brush, because I can apply my foundation with this, but also if I was in a pinch and couldn't really carry a lot of brushes with me, I could totally use this brush for any cream or liquid base products as well. Maybe if you have a larger face or just want a really good kind of larger foundation brush, the 101 is amazing. Or if you want something smaller, go with the 109. That was my BK Beauty brush lesson for the moment. I just wanted to break that down because I know it can be so confusing when you're shopping on the websites and you're like, what are all these numbers? What are all these shapes? Here we go. But really, if I could only recommend one cream base brush from this entire video, hands down, it's this 115. Moving on to under eye brightener, under eye concealer, or even eyeshadow primer, my favorite brush for that is the Sigma AB1. This brush is from my Sigma eye brush set that just launched this past June. I custom designed all 6 brushes in this set, and we'll talk more about it once we get to the eyeshadow, but I do have my first brush in the set, which is the base brush. And I absolutely love this brush for any cream product that I want to place around my eye. I mean, I literally designed this brush, so of course I love it, but I just love how it fits under my eye. It blends out any cream product so beautifully. I also use this brush to blend out any spot concealer on my face, really just any smaller area with cream products. This is what I grab. Now moving on to any kind of cream or liquid blush, bronzer, or contour. And my favorite brush for that is the BK Beauty 116. I believe this one came out at the same time as the 115 brush did, and when I saw these two brushes, I just knew they were going to be like a match made in heaven. I knew I was going to get so much use out of these. So the difference between these two brushes is really just the shape. So the 116 has a more rounder shape to it that I really like for getting on the apples of my cheeks with my cream blush, but it also works great for applying a cream bronzer around my hairline. And you might be like, but Angela, you just said you could use the 115 for those steps. And yes, you totally can. But for me, and when I do my makeup, I like to have 2 different brushes for these steps, because on one brush, I like to kind of mix my blush and bronzer on here. And then as I'm doing my makeup, if I need to maybe blend an area just a little bit more, I can go back to my foundation brush that has some leftover product on it and use that to kind of blend and soften edges. But again, if I was traveling, if I was in a pinch and I can't bring all of my brushes, I could totally just bring the 115. But because I like to have 2 different brushes for my liquid and cream products, these are my go-tos. Now let's talk about setting the face. My go-to tool for setting my face these last couple months has really just been one of these kind of basic velour puffs. Now I don't use this to set my entire face, but I do use it to set almost most of my face. But specifically, I really like this for the under eye area just because it fits perfectly under here and it lets you really press in the powder to get that smooth finish. I also like to use this to press in powder around my cheek area, just where those pores are a little bit larger, to really just work that powder in. And you really don't need anything fancy. You can definitely get a pack of these for pretty cheap off Amazon. But now if I do want to add some kind of finishing powder to my face, I do love a good old fluffy powder brush. Pretty self-explanatory and in the name, but this is just a great larger brush for getting that powder all over your face. And I like that this brush is big, but it's not too big. But it's really nice and fluffy. It has a good amount of give to it, and it just sets my face beautifully. So we set with powder. Next is powder, blush, and bronzer. I have two options for this, and it really depends on my mood and the type of look that I'm going for. So on days where I want a very blushy look, where I know I'm gonna be layering like 3 to 4 different blushes, just powder blush all over my face, I love a big brush like this. So this is the BK Beauty 104, and I like this one because it comes to a nice taper here. So when I'm applying a lot of blush on my face, I usually start here on the apples of my cheeks, and then I'm typically not doing like a big eyeshadow look. So I'll take this big brush with my blush and even pat it on the outer corner of my eye and just kind of do like a big C shape with my blush. Again, that's when I want a heavy blush look, but I also use this brush for powder bronzer as well. Again, it's just nice and fluffy, so it's gonna do a really good job at just dusting powder along my hairline, along my cheeks. I also use this to bring all of my bronzer down my neck and around my ears, which is a must with my short hair. Just to show you the difference between that Sigma powder one I was just talking about, you can kind of see the shape difference here. The Sigma one is a bit rounder, which is why I like it for all over powder. You can see the taper of this one more, and that's why I like this brush for blush and bronzer. But if I don't want a super blushy look and I want to be more precise with where I'm placing it, I love the BK Beauty 112 brush. Now this brush I could also use for a million different things. This is a pretty small brush, so it definitely does a good job at being nice and precise on my cheeks if I want that look for my blush. I've used this brush for powder in the past as well if I just want to maybe dust some powder under my eye or just around my face, any smaller areas. It hits any small area perfectly. And this one is really nice and fluffy and has a lot of give to it, so it's not going to over apply product. Base makeup is almost done, and the last step is highlighter. Now I don't think this type of brush is an absolute need in everyone's collection. Honestly, you could really use this 112 brush for highlighter as well, but again, because of the different steps, I don't want to be mixing so many different products on one brush. Because like, what if I use this for highlighter one day and then the next day I go to apply my powder and I forget there was highlighter on this and now I have highlighter all over my face? That's kind of why I like the separate brushes for different steps. So my favorite highlighter brush is the Sigma F03, and this has been the highlighter brush I've been using for years and years. Honestly, this has the old Sigma logo on it. Like, I've had this for a long time. I also think this brush has won a lot of awards, but it is just the perfect shape for hitting highlighter just right on the top of your cheekbone, even getting right under your brow here. You want to dust a little highlighter on your nose, on your cupid's bow. It's just the perfect little shape. So those are all of the base brushes, and I really hope that that wasn't too overwhelming. Honestly, I think the most complicated part was the BK Beauty having the same brush shape just in different sizes. But again, out of all of these base brushes, if you were like, Angela, I can only get one brush, I'd probably say the 115 brush just because it's such a good multitasker. Now moving on to eyeshadow brushes, of course my favorite ones are going to be the ones that I created with Sigma Beauty. I made this custom eye brush set, and of course the convenient part is that all of these brushes are together in one set. You have everything you need right here to create pretty much any eye look. So we already went over the base brush, which is a brush that I use for any eyeshadow primer, under eye concealer, really any cream products around the eye. My next staple brush is going to be my fluffy blending brush. I have always started off all of my eye looks with a brush just like this because I like to use this to run shades back and forth in my crease, whether I'm just doing a transition shade or even kind of building things up. I can layer on more with this brush. So I can apply product in my crease with this, but then because this brush is so fluffy, it's also really good at softening out the edges of your eye look as well. And I really wanted to make this brush the perfect shape. It's not too big and it's not too small. The next eye brush is the crease brush. Now this brush was inspired by the Sigma E25, which was one of my go-to eyeshadow brushes for the last 8 years or so. But this is such a good multitasking eyeshadow brush. Like, I can do an entire look with just this brush. So I can use this brush to apply more shadow in my crease and be a little bit more precise because it has more of a tip compared to the fluffy blending brush. For today's look, I used the flat side of this brush to pack on some color on the outer part of my eye because it can cover a lot of surface area with this flatter side. And you can also use the tip of this brush to blend along the lower lash line. Like, there's just a lot you can do with this one. And then we have the small blending brush, which is really just a smaller version of the fluffy blending brush that I mentioned earlier. Because I think it's so important to have these two different sizes in your collection. Because again, you'll have the fluffier one to cover larger areas of your eye, but then you have the small blending to be even more precise. So I use this one a lot to apply shadow shadow along my entire lower lash line, which is exactly what I did today. And then because this brush is so small, I can also use the tip of this to deepen up smaller areas of my eye, maybe the outer corner, maybe the inner corner of my lid. I've even used this brush for my inner corner or brow bone highlighter. Like, this is another one you can do a lot of steps with. And then we have a shader brush, which is one of my favorites for just packing shadow along the entire eyelid. So this brush is a little bit shorter and denser, so it's going to be really good at just packing on shadow and layering up that color. And then because this brush is on the smaller side, I've also used the tip of this brush to really pack shadow along my lower lash line, or just pack on shadow really anywhere you need it. And then the last brush in my brush set is the small detail brush. I have received such good feedback from you guys on this brush, and I'm so happy to hear it because this really is the perfect tiny detail brush. This brush is so small, so it lets you be really precise. So today I used it to stamp some shadow along my lower lash line to just get really nice and close to the base of my lashes. And then I also use this brush to stamp some shadow along my top lash line for kind of a softer, smokier look. And then of course, because it's a small detail brush, it is perfect for the inner corner, the brow bone. You want to highlight the tip of your nose, cupid's bow, like any tiny precise detail you want to do with this brush is perfect. So I created this brush set so you would have just one complete perfect eye brush set that you can use to create so many different eye looks. And the brushes are just so beautiful, if I do say so myself. So the only brush I didn't include in my eye brush set is a liner brush, just because I feel like a lot of people already own some kind of angled or soft liner brush. But if you need a good one, I have two recommendations. They are both from Sigma and they both work perfect with creams, liquids, shadows, gels, whatever you want to do with liner, you can do with these. So first is the E65 small angled brush. And this is really just your typical kind of stiff angled liner brush. So you can use this to apply shadow along your lash line, or it's also really good at doing a wing if you want to do that with like shadow or any kind of gel. But if you want something a little bit smaller than this and to be even more precise, I do love their E06 winged liner brush. So the E06 is even smaller than the E65. It's also a little less stiff and has a bit more give to it, which can be really nice at adding that flick. Like if you're someone that is just a winged liner baddie and you're just really good at doing it, you know, you just get like a really good flick at the end, like this brush will do that for you. So out of all the brushes in my collection, these are definitely my most used and my most recommended. Everything will be linked down below for you as always, so I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one.